Hello and welcome to Knights of the Nerds Table. I'm your host, Dietr, and this is Dietr Knows, a segment where I discuss all kinds of pop culture trivia. Today, though, instead of telling you a fun fact, I'd like to tell you a story. Specifically, the story of 3 Septembers and a January, originally told in the pages of Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, number 31. This story, part of the ongoing saga of Dream of the Endless, opens in September of 1859 in San Francisco. Here, we find a destitute businessman, Joshua Norton, deep in the clutches of Dream's little sister, Despair. Norton has lost everything, but, as Despair observes, is either unwilling or unable to pass into the domain of death. Taking an interest in the man, Despair calls Dream to her with a challenge. Life has hurt him, she observes as she needles her older brother. What can you do with your little dreams to redeem him? And so, the gauntlet is thrown. The youngest Endless, Despair, Desire, and Delirium will attempt to take Norton into their domains, unless his dreams can protect him. Dream accepts, diving into Norton's dreams. There, he learns of Norton's financial losses in the rice trade, of his childhood in South Africa, of his dream of being respected, a man of worth, and of his discontentment with the United States of America, a country that he describes as a land of chaos and confusion, a country without a king. Finally, Norton admits that all of his dreams are gone. He has nothing left to dream. And so, Dream of the Endless decides to give Joshua Norton a new dream. Sometime later, Joshua Norton rushes from his apartment to the offices of the Evening Bulletin in order to deliver the first of many proclamations that he will draft in his life. This first proclamation declares that, at the request of the citizens of the United States, Joshua Norton has declared himself the Emperor of the United States for the purpose of ameliorating the evils under which the country is laboring. We move forward in time now to the September of 1864. A novelist tears up his manuscript in frustration and storms out of his brownstone to encounter Emperor Norton on the street. After Norton corrects him on the appropriate honorifics when addressing an emperor, it is Your Majesty, not Mr. Norton, the novelist offers to buy the hungry emperor a meal. Emperor Norton declines the charity, but does remember that the novelist has yet to pay his imperial tax, which would come to just about the cost of a nice lunch. And so, the novelist and the emperor take lunch at a local saloon and discuss the emperor's plans for a new bridge across the bay, all under the watchful eye of Dream. Dream is shortly thereafter joined by his youngest sister, Delirium, who has come about the challenge. As Emperor Norton observes, there are many who laugh at him and think him mad. So it would make sense that Norton would belong to Delirium. Dream and Delirium continue to observe as the novelist and the emperor enjoy their meal. The emperor offers some suggestions to the novelist on what he could write about, specifically citing the novelist's ideas about a frog. The pair finish their meal, and the emperor decides to issue another proclamation. The novelist, Samuel Clemens, who writes under the name Mark Twain, shall be appointed the official spinner of tales and teller of stories to these United States of America. Norton then rushes off to attend to his other duties as emperor. Delirium realizes that, despite appearances, Norton does not belong to her. He's perfectly sane, except about being emperor, and even she isn't sure about that. The one thing she knows is that, if it is madness, that madness keeps him sane. Once more forward in time to September of 1875, Emperor Norton meets some tourists from Kansas who excitedly exchange 50 cents for currency printed and issued by the emperor. As they leave with their new currency, Emperor Norton is approached by Ah Hao, a Chinese man who informs the emperor that his presence is required at a place called the Cobweb Palace. Norton arrives there and is met by the ghost of the King of Pain, a snake oil salesman who had died by suicide recently. The King of Pain comes as the emissary for Dream's sibling, Desire, to offer Norton his choice of women with whom he could conceive an heir and a proper house to raise his family in. All he has to do is desire it. Norton immediately rejects him, saying, "It is true that my rent is but 50 cents a week. It is true that my clothes were a gift from the city council. I exchange federal currency for my own, and thus I live. Many restaurants and eating houses now accept my script. This is my city. In my country. They treat me well here. I want nothing." The King of Pain's ghost reacts with disbelief, saying that he is offering anything Norton wants. Norton pauses for a moment and reflects on the moment that he was arrested for lunacy. He has Ahau quote the judge's ruling in that case. Mr. Norton has shed no blood, robbed no one, and despoiled no country, which is more than can be said of most fellows in the king line. And with that, Norton asserts his lack of desire once more. He is the Emperor of the United States, and he is content to be what he is. And so, the King of Pain returns to Desire, having failed to capture Norton for them. Desire expresses disbelief to Dream. They can feel Norton's desires, his lust. How could they fail? Dream merely says that Norton has his dignity. He is, after all, an emperor. Finally, we move forward one last time to January the 8th, 1880. Emperor Norton, walking down the street in the rain, collapses. Dream and Despair stand over him. Despair comments that, despite everything, Norton never returned to her, and they move on. Norton is left standing alone in the rain, with a pale-skinned, dark-haired woman wearing a silver ankh around her neck. The woman comments that Norton was Jewish, and asks if he was familiar with the story of the 36 Tzaddikim, 36 living saints upon whose back the world rests. Norton confesses that he doesn't see the significance, to which Death simply grins and says, "I've met a lot of kings and emperors and heads of state in my time, Joshua. I've met them all. And you know something? I think I liked you best." This is a segment about facts, right? Why am I telling you a story in a segment about facts? Well, the fact is, everything I just told you was true. Joshua Norton was a real man that lived in San Francisco in the 1800s. He really did declare himself emperor. He really did print his own currency, which was accepted in local community establishments. He was an advocate against anti-Chinese violence within the city, and he really was a contemporary of Mark Twain, who proposed the idea of the Golden Gate Bridge. His story is one of the most unique in American history. I first read Sandman about 7 years ago, and this was the story that stuck with me the most. And I'll admit part of that is because I actually already knew the story of Emperor Norton, and it made me feel clever to see Neil Gaiman writing about it in his stories. But there's more to it. In my opinion, Emperor Norton, at least the Emperor Norton of American mythology, is the most honest ruler in the history of the world. This is because he understood that his power, his sovereignty, was solely given to him at the generosity of his neighbors, of his community, and their willingness to believe in his dream. In return, Norton acted as a public servant and an activist as best as his limited station and finances would allow. In a world where we are so often subjected to stories about abuse of power, it is truly refreshing and inspirational to see a story of a man, even with absolute delusions of grandeur, having an understanding that the real power is the aid that he could offer his community and that his community could offer to him. As always, if you want to know more, I would highly recommend checking out Neil Gaiman's The Sandman from your local comic book shop or library. And if you want to know more about Emperor Norton, I'd recommend checking out the website emperornortontrust.org, which was an absolutely invaluable resource to me when I was researching this video. And in the meantime, I would like to read you the final lines of this wonderful story, which indicate just how much of an impact Emperor Norton had on his community. Joshua Norton was buried on Sunday the 10th of January, 1880. 10,000 people filed past the body as it lay in state, and his funeral cortege was over 2 miles long. His burial was marked by a total eclipse of the sun. He was the first and last emperor of the United States of America. Thank you so much for watching this strange little story. If you had a good time, please like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time for more conversations with the Knights of the Nerds table. In the meantime, I've been Dietr, this has been Dietr Knows, and now you know too.